All right, my loves, welcome back to another episode. And I am so excited for the conversation that we are going to have together today. So, at the time of this recording, me putting all of this together, I've had some conversations with people near and dear to me. So, clients, the women that I lead inside of Energy Expansion Academy, and also some things that I've been feeling internally and what I'm sensing is many people are craving to feel more momentum, to feel a deeper sense of inspiration and excitement. And I wanted to talk a little bit about what I truly believe is gonna help us do that. And yesterday, as I was taking notes, there were three specific words that I wrote down that I really believe that anybody who's on a journey that is worthwhile, these things deeply matter. And I'm going to say these words, and I want you to just notice how you feel in your body as I say them, because I'm going to just be completely honest with you. I don't now, and in the past, have not had the best relationship to what we're going to be talking about today, but it is really important. So when I list off these three words, if you don't like them, don't tune out. I want you to lean in. So, what we're going to be talking about today is consistency, discipline, and devotion. The differences between these important concepts, how they work together, and how they ultimately fuel your path to success, not just in business or in your career, but really in every area of your life. And then beyond that, what's going to be the most helpful thing is we're going to talk about tangible actions that you can take, different tips you can apply, little life hacks. I love a good life hack. I don't know about you. And then things that you can keep in mind when it comes to your mind and the energetics of all of this. And so, as you're listening, I want you to take what I'm sharing and I want to invite you to use it as a lens through which you get to see elements of your own life. Because you might realize, oh my goodness, the reason I'm not feeling as on fire as I want to be, or I'm just lacking motivation, you might actually have consistency. But maybe you're going through the motions and you're missing that devotion. Maybe you're really, really disciplined with certain things, but the discipline is creating burnout. And so I promise that if you're here listening, you're here for a reason and there's something really powerful for you in this conversation. So we're going to start with just defining these various terms so you can start to understand where it is that you want to lean into based on this conversation we're having. So, from the context of my beliefs and the powerful work that I do with the incredible women that I get to serve and interact with day in and day out, consistency, we're going to define it as the steady rhythm that keeps you moving forward, even when you're faced with challenges or setbacks. It's about showing up on a regular basis. I want to go as far as saying showing up day after day, but I think that that can sometimes do us a disservice because you can be consistent with something, but maybe doing it every day isn't aligned for you. Maybe you create a schedule of consistency of taking a certain action in your personal life or for your own mental and emotional well-being or doing something inside of your business, but it looks like doing it Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Okay. So consistency doesn't have to be every single day. Although, if consistency is something you've struggled with, it can be helpful to choose one small thing to practice every single day to build that muscle. Okay. Consistency is really the heartbeat of progress. And that is what we all want. It's the unwavering commitment to show up. That's really what it is. Okay. So that is consistency. Now let's talk a little bit about discipline. Discipline is that unshakable commitment to your goals. It's about choosing what you want, the big picture things that you want, over those moment by moment desires, those little mini temptations. It's about remembering the bigger picture and what it's going to take to get there. And there's a connection here because I really believe that discipline is the backbone of consistency. So they're not exactly the same. There's these slight differences, but you're going to see these concepts weaving together. Discipline is the inner strength that keeps you on track, right? It's the thing that helps you not get wrapped up in the shiny objects and in the distractions, whether they be big or small. And it's the willingness to do what needs to be done, even when you're not feeling it. And if I want to be completely honest, that's the part that I sometimes struggle with. And even over a decade, the part I struggle with is the doing what you know needs to happen so that you can have what you most deeply desire, so you can end up where you want to be and doing it even when you don't feel like it. That's the part that I struggle with. And I feel like there's something big to that. And I've been doing this personal professional development work for over a decade. I've been teaching goal setting and implementing routines and positive habits. And it's such human nature for us to want to check out when we're faced with a challenge or when this is also something I've talked about on another podcast episode and with all of the women I serve, remembering that we're cyclical beings. And so I know that especially for women, there are quite literally different times during the month when our hormones change. And so it's how can we stay committed? How can we stay disciplined while also honoring where we're at? We cannot take that piece out of the equation. And the thing that I identified really early on and at the beginning of this episode, when I said that sometimes these are concepts that even I struggle with to this day in the way that I relate to them. I want to rebel against them sometimes. I was having a conversation with someone who I am currently working with. She's amazing. I call her my self-mastery coach. So I bring her where I'm at, what I'm wrestling with, what's working, what's not working. And I had shared with her how I was feeling this call to create more structure and more discipline, but there was something in me that was rebelling against it. And we had to really get to the bottom of that. So I share that with you because I want to remind you that you're not alone in this experience. And now I just got done talking about and relating this back to how can we stay committed while also honoring what's real and alive for us in that moment? And that's really a big and powerful question. And to be honest, I don't think it's necessarily a question that we're ever going to have a solid answer to. I think that answer is going to change moment by moment. And I think it's important that we address that because the sort of mainstream teachings around consistency and discipline are deeply rooted in the masculine. And I'm not saying that's bad. Every single one of us has a balance of masculine and feminine energy, but we have to remember, and I say we because I am a woman, I identify as a woman, I am, and I attract and primarily and almost exclusively work with other women. It's just kind of the nature of how my business has been structured and how this beautiful journey has unfolded. But I think it's really important that as we are learning and taking advice and implementing different strategies, that we honor our feminine nature and we find that balance. And that's what's going to bring us this final concept. And then we'll go into creating some tangible pieces around this. But this concept of devotion, I love this concept. And really early on in my business, when I noticed that I was struggling and rebelling against things like consistency and discipline, connecting to the energy of devotion, which is inherently more of a feminine concept, it was so incredibly helpful. So, devotion is the deep, like the most deeply seated, heart centered passion that fuels your journey. It is the fire that keeps you going. And it is the unwavering belief in your purpose and your potential. If you're really good at the whole consistency And discipline thing, you're like, I've got that, but I'm feeling wildly uninspired. And I'm doing the things that I'm supposed to be doing every day, but I don't like how I feel. The invitation very likely is you get to lean into this concept and the energetics around devotion, being deeply devoted to something. Just a moment ago, I was telling you about this conversation that I was having with my self mastery coach. And what it came down to, and this is really more around the conversation of devotion, is she'd ask me a question. She says, Dani, what are you allowing yourself to be fueled by? And that gave me a moment of pause because as much as I love this work, I admittedly don't think that I had stopped to think about that in a while. And so I know what to do. I know the actions to take. Although my relationship with things like consistency and discipline can be a little rocky sometimes, I can muster up. I can I can man up and I can push and I can force and I can control. And I spent a big part of my life and a big part of my the business building journey in that energy, and it didn't feel good and it didn't work for very long. It worked for a while, and then it worked until it didn't work anymore. And I found myself feeling exhausted and burnout and uninspired. And so that was where the devotion really came back into play. And so some of my favorite questions recently, I mean, I'm talking within the last couple of weeks, that I have been sitting with, that I've been journaling about, that I have been sharing with my clients is, what are you being fueled by? What are you allowing to move you forward? What is that motivating force that you feel deeply connected to? As cliche as it can sometimes sound, it's like, what's that thing that's going to have you get out of bed in the morning? And if you're anything like me, I don't want to just get out of bed. I want to jump out of bed. I want to feel connected to what it is that I'm doing in the world. So there's that piece. What are you being fueled by? And what is the energy you're moving from? These are two really big and important distinctions. So we just had the opportunity to go through and talk about, and from the Dani perspective, the Dani who's been doing this work, I've been practicing these things for myself, and also teaching these things to my clients for over a decade. We got to talk about the definition of each of these, but now what I want to go in is what I want to go in and do is give you some different tangible tools to keep in mind. So, little recap, breaking down consistency, discipline, and devotion. I'm really curious, based on the frame that we just spoke about all of these through, which one of these do you feel like you're being invited to lean into? Maybe there's one that's really standing out. Like I just admitted that recently I needed to realign with devotion. I needed to get clear on what I was allowing to fuel me, right? And maybe you're listening and you're like, Dani, if I'm being completely honest, I could really use a little help with all of them. Then I would either have you choose one, or as I give you some tangible action steps and mindset shifts and things to keep in mind with each of these, that might inspire you and you might get excited about focusing on one or the other. So if you're like raising your hand and you're like, consistency, Dani, is the thing that I'm really struggling with, there's a few things I want you to keep in mind. So again, you get to define consistency in whatever way feels best for you. Consistency is typically going to be something that we do each day, right? There might be other things that need to happen in your life, in your business, in your home, and you're consistently doing those one or two times a week, right? But when it comes to building up your consistency muscle, I am going to invite you to choose one thing to do every single day. Right now, I'm on this kick, and I think it's the best kick I've ever been on, and I've been on some good kicks. And it's this journey of writing a daily love letter to myself for 365 days. And I've invited many women inside of my circle to do this with me, and the results have been amazing. One other kick that I've been on, and this is not going to be for everybody, but I've been really loving taking cold showers every day. To say I've been really loving it is like odd to say, but I love how it makes me feel. And there's something about, I've been more consistent with these cold showers and these daily love letters than I've ever been with anything before, which is a really big deal for me because I'm one of those people. I could do things for like 5 days straight and then maybe miss day 6, miss day 7, and then jump back on. And there's nothing wrong with that. If you miss a day, that's okay. It doesn't mean you're a failure, but there's something in me that feels so good and so proud. And it's like, babe, you have not skipped a single day. Look at you. Look at who you're becoming. Look at the muscle that you're building. So choose one small thing every day. And if we want to connect this one small action step back to devotion, which again is the fuel, it's the fuel to the fire, then choose something that's really going to deeply support you. And I am going to be on, like, I will die on the hill that writing a daily love letter to yourself is going to be one of those things. Or maybe it's a quick breath work practice or setting a timer for, honestly, 60 seconds. If you're new to meditation, 60 seconds. That's it. Just set your timer for 60 seconds, close your eyes, take a few deep breaths, and just drop into your body. So, one small thing, it does not have to take a long time. Okay. And commit to yourself to do them. Now, the other thing is if you are somebody who, again, struggles with consistency, a mindset shift that is going to help you tremendously. It's all of these things that I'm giving you are purposely teeny tiny, because if it's too big or if it's complicated, chances of it not happening decrease exponentially, right? Or they increase. Chances of it not happening increase exponentially. So, one thing that's going to make a world of a difference for consistency and you learning how to keep your promises to yourself, which then boosts your self esteem and your confidence, is to celebrate. I know it sounds so small, and it really does get to be so simple and so small. And even not just celebrating, but I love the idea of micro wins, right? If you do the one little thing you say that you're going to do every day, and then you take a minute to breathe in a breath of celebration. Like I said, I was going to do it and I did it. And this is a big deal. Chances of you then sticking with that go up a ton. So, a powerful mindset shift around consistency is to celebrate more. Celebrate every little thing you can, every little ounce of progress, every step, no matter how big or how small. Maybe you're doing something new and it feels like you're failing. You get to celebrate that you're trying the thing. Celebrate the illusion of the failure, right? So that's going to help reinforce those really great feelings. It's going to give you the hit of dopamine and serotonin, and it's going to make it that much easier for you to continue moving forward. So those are two things I want you to keep in mind if you're like, okay, based on this conversation, I've really got to give myself a loving kick in the pants when it comes to consistency. Okay. Now let's go into discipline. Maybe you're like me, where you can be consistent with something for a little bit and then you drop off. And you have these sort of like yo-yo. I would call that the yo-yo effect, where it's like you're really, 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 really good. And then you like completely jump off the wagon, right? Then discipline might actually be the thing that you get to lean into. So, what I would invite you to do, that your like tangible action step around this is I want you to identify your biggest distractions. What are your biggest distractions right now? Where are you noticing that you're allowing your energy to creep into your time? And you're like, you know what? That's actually not the best use of my time and my energy, right? Identify what are your biggest distractions. Maybe it's the first thing that comes to mind is scrolling, spending more time than necessary on social media. Maybe it is, and I'm not saying don't scroll, but you and I both know that there's that moment where you're like, okay, now we've gone into the level of excessiveness. The same thing. I'm a big fan of a little bit of mindless TV. I feel like that's always been one of my, dare I call it like a vice. But I think there's a difference between watching, an episode every once in a while versus spending hours and hours and hours and hours every single week binging. And please don't think that if I'm saying that and you're feeling called out, that there's any judgment happening, because that's not the case. But what I do know is that doesn't serve me. And I know that that doesn't serve you. So identify what are some of your biggest distractions. And this also might be not necessarily things you're doing, but what is taking up space in that big, beautiful brain and that big, beautiful heart of yours. Maybe this is actually an internal shift where we have to set some boundaries with ourselves. And we're not going to let those thoughts or aspects of the past or even things connected to the future, like excessive worry or concern, take up space. So tangible action, number one, is identify what are 1 to 3 of your biggest distractions and create a plan, something simple to minimize those distractions. Maybe setting boundaries with yourself, putting some timers on your phone, having an accountability partner, right? If you're in a community like the ones I lead, we can weave in accountability layers there as well. And then one of my favorite mindset shifts, again, we're talking about discipline, we're talking about tangible actions and mindsets. One thing that has me really reconnect and actually get excited about discipline is it's an old proverb. Maybe Aristotle said it. I think a bunch of old guys said it and I believe it, but it's this concept of freedom through discipline. This blew my mind wide open, especially when I first started my business, because I think there's this thing that happens. I'm curious if you can relate to this. When you go from being an employee, and there's nothing wrong with being an employee, but when you go from working underneath someone else's schedule or the way that they want things done to then working for yourself, for me, what happened was there was very little structure. Like I went from a lot of structure to like no structure, thinking when I started my business, what I wanted was freedom. But because I had almost no discipline and almost no structure at all, I actually felt really overwhelmed. And I felt like things were slipping through the cracks and I didn't feel clear. And can I tell you, that doesn't feel like freedom. That feels really uncomfortable and really challenging to be in a state of chaos and stress and overwhelm all of the time. So when I feel myself kind of drifting into like overly fluid, overly flowy, no plan, thinking that that's freedom, I have to remind myself, how can I build in a little bit more aligned containment, create a plan, create something that feels really good and inspiring and stick to it. And 100% of the time, the freedom that I feel from that is so much more real than throwing the entire plan to the wind for weeks or months at a time. Right. And going back to our feminine cyclical nature, I think there's seasons where it can be really fun for more spontaneity and not having a plan, but you've got to find that gauge for yourself. And so I'm curious as you're listening right now, if you're like, oh, this is a season where I could use a little more freedom through discipline and some clarity and a plan would be helpful. So the last one that we'll get to here, coming back to this concept of devotion. If you're like, Dani, I've checked the boxes of the consistency and the discipline, but the devotion is what my soul is craving, then a few things that I want to invite you to come back to. And if you are specifically in the entrepreneurial space, a question that we hear a lot, so much so that I think it can get diluted or we can blow off the power of it, it loses some of its meaning, is connecting to your why. Just a moment ago, do you remember I was around the conversation of devotion? I had said, what are you being fueled by? What is the energy that you're moving from? Because the actions that you're taking consistently or doing it from a place of empowered discipline, those are going to be really hard to do if the energy from which you're taking action doesn't actually excite you and inspire you and drive you and propel you forward, right? Like you could be, or you may even be in a position where like, you know what you need to do, regardless of the energy you're doing them from, you've got to do them. So the energy that you move from really does matter. So the tangible action step to help you reconnect to this concept of devotion is getting really clear on your why, reminding yourselves about the reasons that you've said yes to certain things, the call that was put on your heart that you said yes to, the impact that you want to make in the world. Visualization can be another really beautiful action step. And if you've been in my world for a while, there's a lot of different resources, not only in my paid containers like Energy Expansion Academy, but I also have some free meditations floating around out there. Feel free to message me if you don't see the link somewhere on my different social media platforms. But getting really clear on who it is that you're becoming, what it is that you want, what that future that you're creating looks like, that can be a really great way to do this. And the mindset shift here that I'm going to invite you into is another one of those where you're going to hear it and you might think, yeah, I understand the power of that, but do you? And it's gratitude, 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 gratitude. Gratitude turns what we have into enough. The energy of gratitude, when we're looking at the energetic scale of consciousness, when we're talking about quantum physics and vibration, there are few energies higher than pure gratitude. Gratitude is the energetic frequency of receivership. You want to receive the beautiful, wonderful things that you desire, that God, universe, spirit has available for you, literally waiting at your energetic doorstep. Tap into the experience of gratitude, and that is going to create what you want so much faster than any other energetic state, any other way of being. And there's so many ways that you can tap into gratitude. You can do a simple gratitude journaling practice where every day you make a list of a few things that you're grateful for. You can, it doesn't, journaling is really powerful, but if that's not your jam, literally waking up every day, closing your eyes and taking a few deep breaths. I'm a big fan of like hand over heart, placing your hand over your heart and just letting a few things, people come to your mind that you're grateful for and breathe them in. There's another really powerful, it's a like a heart coherence experience where you imagine somebody who you love so much and you feel the love that you have for them in front of you. And then you use your hands and you scoop up the energy of that love and you bring it to your own heart and you let yourself receive that love. All of these really beautiful and very simple, very quick. I'm not so much like a no excuses person. I think that there can be a lot of hidden reasons why people don't do certain things. And I want to go as far as saying there is no reason why you can't connect to the energy of devotion every single day, consistency or discipline, because the little bite-sized tangible actions that I proposed and gave you today can all take as little as 60 seconds. It's 60 seconds that could change your entire life, that could shift the trajectory of your business and make a massive impact on your overall quality of life and well-being. And in closing, I want you to know that I want this for you because you deserve this. I want this for you because you deserve to meet the version of you who is tapped into building the muscle of consistency and experiencing the freedom through discipline, and whose heart is on fire for what she's here to do because of the power of devotion. So I love you so much. I am so excited to hear your thoughts and your feels about this episode. Please, I invite you to reach out to me. Find me on any social media platform where I am, which is primarily at the time of this recording, Instagram and Facebook. Let me know how this landed for you. Let me know if it is consistency, discipline, or devotion that you're most excited about leaning into. I love you, and I'll see you next time.